Hello and welcome to another episode of the Revenue Career Ladder podcast, where we dive deep into the career journeys of revenue focused professionals to give you real insights, actionable tips, and maybe even a little reassurance that the journey is yours to define. In this episode, I'm joined by Mafalda Johannsen, and we're going to be chatting about your journey from travel sales agent to head of business development, which is quite a journey. So I'm interested. I'm interested about this one. I think travel, that's going to have probably some very, very interesting stories as well. The industry in general, depending on when you worked in the industry as well, and where it was, which we all dive into. But without further ado, how are you, Mafalda?
I'm good. How are you, Jamie? Super
Um,
nice to be
yeah,
here.
I'm good. For people will be tuning into this at some point in spring, I'd imagine, in terms of when we're planning for it to go live. But we're recording this the first week back in January, so it's still that bit of a lull between. The first week lull of it's not quite the first full week. Half
Yeah.
the business still isn't back in, so it's nice and quiet. The weather's good, so I'm good. I can't complain.
Nice. Yeah, yeah. Same here. I think today is the last day of chilled work, and I think next week it will start again. But it is what it is.
Yeah. I think we got to make the most of the rest of today and have a very, very
Exactly.
chilled weekend before it really 2025 properly begins next week.
Yeah, yeah. 100%.
So tell me, we always start these discussions with first ever job. So first ever job, talk to me about travel sales agent.
Yeah. I was around 21 years old. I was living in the United States. I'm originally from Portugal. And I did my master in Florida. And then once you have a F1 visa, which is a studying visa, you can upgrade to working visa for a year after your studies. And I did that. And I didn't have any work experience besides working here and there in the university. So it was really hard for me to find like a job even selling tickets, something really easy. They wouldn't, and also like I had a visa, so they're like, you know what, we can find other people with more experience with no visas, and the only ones who gave me a job was 100% commission job, so it was not risky for them. So it's like, if she doesn't sell, we are not paying her salary anyway, or health insurance. So there was no risk for them. I was not very thrilled, I have to say, because I never had the the dream of working in sales. It didn't even cross my mind. So it never crossed my mind working in sales. I was not very happy about a person commission job, but you know what? I was like, the main reason why I'm not getting a job is because I don't have job experience. So I'm gonna, just do this for a couple of months, and if it's horrible, at least I can apply already with something on my CV. But it was not horrible. It was actually really, really cool.
So if we just take a quick step back to the rationale, how come you decided to go to university in Florida then?
I did business administration in Portugal. That's my bachelor's management, and my university at the time, they had like a partnership with UCF, University of Central Florida, and I want to do my master's abroad. And when I mean abroad, I mean even out of Europe. I've done a summer school before in South Korea, but I really wanted to live somewhere else that's not Europe, and basically it was an easy way. It sounded interesting, the masters. I got a scholarship through my university, so it was also a kind of cheap way to do this. So it was, yeah, I didn't choose Florida chose me.
Yeah, it's not a bad place to end up doing your masters. A colleague that I used to work with at my previous company decided to move out to Tampa
Oh yeah,
a couple of years ago with the company at the time, and he's just basically decided to stay out there.
yeah,
And he can't see himself coming back, at least not long term anyway. Like
yeah,
he'll pop back for the old Christmas here and there, but
yeah.
yeah, apart from that, so you mentioned you had a couple of odd little jobs here and there at university. What are we talking? Just like in bars, retail, what sort of stuff?
Research assistant, so just doing some surveys for PhD students, giving private lessons here and there, these kind of jobs. No, I was never a barista kind of person. I'm very sloppy. I drop everything, so I never dared to work in a restaurant because it's too difficult for me.
Right, okay. Yeah, I'm trying to piece together the aptitude for sales further down the line and like the experience and stuff. So okay, so you didn't think you would enjoy it, or you didn't think it would be any good, and then you ended up realizing that the fact that it was 100% commission job was actually the perfect start to your career. And why was that?
Because I mean, nothing is scarier than that, right? So any job offer, it's after that is an easier offer, right? So even if it's base plus commission, it's still safer than 100% commission
Mm.
or even a salary, So I realized it was a fantastic start exactly because of that. Nothing else that came after was as scary as that. So for me, I always, faced challenges with sense of humor, because I was like, you know what, I've done 100% commission job, like, so I'm used to finish the week, because obviously in the States we are paid bi-weekly, and working 6 days a week without making nothing, anything, like zero, and start thinking, next week I really, really have to, because I have a rent to pay and I have groceries to pay. So yeah, so I started like that. So everything else in my career was so much easier. So
Yeah,
I'm
I think
very,
we would call that a baptism of fire. I think that's a
yes.
yeah. It's very much a case
We
of
have the same expression in Portuguese,
yeah, yeah.
baptismo de
It's
fogo, yes.
basically we're not sure if you can swim, but we're just going to throw you in there, or you threw yourself in there because of the situation you're in, which speaks to the level of challenge and pain that you can put yourself through in order
Yeah,
to achieve something, which is a very very good trait in sales,
yeah,
a much needed trait in sales. So you touched on the fact that you got a year working visa. So did you
yeah.
do this? Was this for a year? Was it?
So it was for around 6 months. And then I got a better offer by the competitor. So I was doing exactly the same thing for another company, but it was base plus commission and health insurance. So the main reason for me was not so much the base plus commission, which is nicer. I'm not saying that that was not attractive, but for me it was more the health insurance kind of thing, because in the States that's crucial, and the first one didn't pay me that. So I've worked a whole year in this kind of business, doing this kind of job, but not 100% commission sales the whole time. But again, the reason that I changed was not because I was not making a living. I was still paying my bills with a 100% commission job. Was really the health insurance kind of
Okay,
thing.
so you did that for 6 months, and then I take it the next role we're going to talk about is that the next role on the ladder, or have we
I mean,
are we jumping forward?
we are jumping, because I didn't mention this one because it's basically the same thing. So I don't think I was up in the ladder, because
Mm.
okay, yes, it's safer, but in terms of career I wasn't the same level. So I the next, let's say, career step was when my visa expired and I had to come back to Europe. I didn't want to go back to Portugal because salaries are really low in Portugal, and I was like, I don't feel like making at the time 500 euros a month. And I was like, Germany, I have German roots, so I would like to learn German. I The salaries are good, so let me go and try. And I was applying to a lot of different companies in different cities in Germany. I didn't have a preference because I didn't have friends, or I was like, I don't care. I will take the first city that offers me a job. That was Berlin, for obvious reasons, because in Berlin you don't really need German that much, at least to work. Whereas in other cities like Munich, Hamburg, it's harder to get a job without German language. So in Berlin, a lot of people don't speak German. So I got a job, and because I was doing these sales jobs in the States were in the tourism industry, so I stayed in the industry, not in a sales job, but in a more operations job. So I think these I can consider like the next step in my career because I had more responsibility. I was more in a managerial organizational position. So I would say that that's for me the next step on my career ladder.
Okay, so we did 1 year in travel industry, couple of different jobs
Yeah.
in the US, Florida, and then you came to the end of your year-long visa. At which point you were essentially, well, could you have got an extension, or was it a case of you have to go back to Europe
I
to
had to
even?
because I would have to get sponsored by a company.
Right, yeah, fine. Okay,
Expensive.
so yeah, and that's very very difficult, and I only know that because of the couple of people I know who have gone over there and had to find it and things, and uh,
Yeah.
lost the job and have to find stuff again. And okay, so you came back and you decided on Germany, and then you stuck in the same industry. So, to what sort of year was this? Because I'm thinking tourism, COVID. I'm just trying to.
No, that was way
Was it
before.
way before? Right,
I'm
fine.
I'm I'm not that young anymore. Yeah, no, that was almost 10 years before COVID. No, yeah, no. So I was in the tourism. I was This was 2000 when I came back to Europe, 2014. So yeah, way before COVID. So I still worked a couple of years in tourism, but I moved to tech before COVID as well, right? So I was a couple of years in the tourism industry in the operational side of it, and then I enjoyed it. I mean, working in hospitality is something else. Anyone who works in hospitality knows what I'm talking about. You see a lot of crazy stuff. It's very hectic, but it's fun. I really enjoyed it. But I wanted to learn something else. So by then I did a couple of jobs in the tourism industry, and I felt I didn't know much about tech. I felt no, I knew. I was never much into tech, so I would never go learn about it in my free time. That's on my free time. I rather learn about music or literature or arts or history or politics. These are things that interest me way more than tech. So I was like, okay, I really need to understand this because this is the future. I don't think I can move up the career ladder without having at least an understanding of technology and what it entails and the industry and everything. So
So,
don't
so
when
you kind of had this foresight of thinking you believed that the industry was going towards tech, and that would be the future of
yeah, of
where
anything.
where you felt you would develop in your career. So
Yeah.
uh, yeah, that's interesting. I would say that's probably the first time we've come across that reason for a career move, to actually say, right, I believe the market's going this way, so I'm going to go into this industry with the
Yeah.
expectation of that's the best place to develop.
Yeah.
That's interesting. How long were you the job in Berlin, operations manager in travel? How long were you in that role for?
So I've done different jobs in that company. So I was in the same company. I was 4 years there, but in these 4 years, I've done from pub crawl guide to supervisor to manager to executive assistant to um, corporate events organizer. So in these 4 years, I've done different roles, the main one being operations manager. So yes, so 4 years in that company doing different stuff.
Now,
Um,
for 4 years doing multiple different roles, you're going to have learned a lot. So take us through some of the key development areas, the key learnings you had in that 4 year period? Because that is 4 years in the same company. It's relatively rare nowadays for people to
Yeah,
stay first.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I know you had different roles, but to stay in the same company is
yeah.
quite rare. So what did you learn in that period?
Um, so as you mentioned, it's rare, but because I've done different things, I think that's why I stayed as well long, because I was learning all the time. So I've learned really a lot, especially on the process sides. Because it's everything is so insane, and at the same time, and you cannot control a lot of things, and you need to solve issues in a very short amount of time, and sometimes several issues at a time. You really need to have good processes, and that's for me one of my biggest learnings that I take to sales later on. um, Also, the other thing that's really important is it doesn't matter if you are on the right side or in the wrong side. If the customer feels that they are in the right side, even though that's not true, you still get to complain or trip advisor, or you still lose the business. So you really need to to try to juggle that. So customer expectations with your product and what you offer. um, and also, I would say that because everything is so fast, you really need to be comfortable with that pace. You need to be comfortable with done being better than perfect, and prioritize, right? So it's like, okay, out of the 10 things that I need to solve in 10 seconds, which are the ones that are really important? That's our business critical. So I think it's, yeah, I think that's I would say the three learnings that I had to do, or that I learned throughout these years in.
Yeah, you touched on call it hospitality or whatever. The travel's probably a step above hospitality in the anger and emotion that you will have had to have dealt with. Because look, we've all been in that situation where
Yeah,
we're late to the airport. There's traffic. Something didn't quite pan out with travel arrangements, and the person that you always take it out on is the
yeah,
agent in front of you,
yeah,
the
yeah,
person who is a representative of the
yeah,
company.
yeah,
And that's in terms of, I think you mentioned in your notes the phrase thick skin. So that's okay. So we've picked up on throwing yourself in the deep end, and then putting yourself in an industry, or at least being in an industry where you need thick skin, both of which are very, very good skills, adaptations, whatever you want to
yeah,
call them,
yeah.
to then move into sales.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I think developing a thick skin, and what you mentioned, because I was on the side of people getting angry at me without being my fault. I think it also made me a better person, right? So I never take out on people if that's not their fault. If they're being rude to me, that's a different story. But if I see that it's completely out of their control, I would never ever, you know, be rude to anyone. But I also think that I have that understanding because I've been there, and I think a lot of people should go through that experience. I think hospitality or whatever can be as a supervisor of the tours like myself, but also bartending, restaurants, whatever, that a lot of crazy stuff happen and outside of your control, and you doing your best juggling 20,000 things at the same time, and people it could have been even worse, but people don't realize that, the customer doesn't realize that, and instead of being thankful because it could have been worse, they are treating you like, sorry, like shit. Like, that's
Mm.
the word. And and I, I it was a really a like it was, I think that made me a much better person, because if it's clearly not the person's fault, I always have a smile even if I'm stressed, like, because they are not paid to deal with my anger. They are paid to
Mm.
try to solve as much as they can my issues or the issues that arose, but they're not my mother, or or they're not my babysitter. But again, I think I've learned that because I've been there.
I
I've
was going to say it's almost as if during like sales training they should just throw you in as a travel agent for a week. Like in the UK, there's a place called Butlins, and I've got this image in my head of putting new sort of junior salespeople into a place like Butlins for a week and making them host tours and like I don't know, sort of just general like ticket stuff.
Yeah,
In the same way as you often hear people talk about door-to-door sales
yeah,
being very, very challenging because you're literally that is the oldest, most traditional form of cold calling. You're knocking on someone's door. That is
yeah,
as cold as it gets. And again, that's another one of those things where I think if you were forced to do it for a week, you would have much more appreciation for the
yeah,
job that you do have,
yeah,
and appreciation for, like you said, the person on the other end.
yeah,
So yeah, there should be some sort of crash course where you have to do that.
yeah.
Okay, so you did that for 4 years. You had the foresight to think that the future in terms of where the money was going to be and where the best growth for you, development for you as an individual was going to be in tech. So what was the first job that you managed to, or you chose or managed to get in tech?
I was already by then quite high in the hierarchy of the company. But because I was going to a new industry, I knew I had to take a step down because I really didn't know anything. So I took a business development rep job, which again is very similar to my first jobs in the States. Because my sales job in the States was also sending people to resorts, which is also prospection. Um, so business development is also prospecting, and that's how I managed to get the job in tech with no previous experience in tech. And I think it also helped because this was almost 2 years before, yeah, 2 years before COVID, so the tech world was still booming, and there was a huge need for especially BDRs. I think that after the tech crush in 2022, companies, they prefer experienced BDRs, or it's not as easy with the experience I had at the time to start as a BDR. But at the time, there was a huge need, and I already spoke German by then. And it's really hard to find good sales reps who are German speaking, even if they're not native. So I think that also helped me. I was speaking German fluently. I did well in the interview. I had previous sales experience, even though it was not in tech. And there was a huge need for these kind of roles. So that's how I got into tech. And again, it was I was again in a very uncomfortable situation because I was trying to speak to CTOs, heads of infrastructure, heads of quality assurance, so extremely technical roles. I had zero technical knowledge. I didn't understand tech as a whole, and suddenly I need to generate interest from these people, and I was like, oh God, I'm again in an extremely difficult situation. So that's how I started in tech. But I never left since then, so I'm still here, and I went back to the same personas now that I've started at UpCloud a couple of months ago. But we still go there. We still have more roles to go.
So how come you decided that in the move to tech you wanted to go back to sales? So how did you know it was sales that you kind of felt was the right move?
it was the it was the easiest one, in the sense that I could never be product manager if I don't even understand
Mm.
tech, right? I could maybe be a junior project manager now because I have knowledge, but at the time I was like, okay, from the tech roles, which one will take me. Not technical customer success, maybe less technical roles, yes, but it's like either customer service or customer support that's not very technical, or sales. Like the other roles, I don't have the knowledge. They would never pick me. So it was more like, okay, I'm qualified enough to do the job, but also between sales and customer support, I'm not a customer support kind of person, and I want to move away from that because I've worked in hospitality enough. I'm like, I don't want to deal with customer support, so I prefer selling. I've done sales, I've done customer service. I I prefer sales, like, by far. So that was like, the decision was like, okay, out of the jobs that I can actually perform, which ones do I like best? And definitely by far sales. Yeah.
It's interesting because there's lots of different reasons people give for choosing a career, and with respect to this series, there's a lot of different reasons people give for falling into sales or choosing sales. And on the whole, people don't necessarily graduate thinking I want to be in sales like
No.
that. My aspirations are to be a sales rep. That it's just not a it's doesn't seem to be that common. Maybe more so in the next 5 to 10 years. I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
know,
yeah,
because the
absolutely.
salaries can be very, very good. But it's interesting in terms of your honesty of what realistically what are the jobs I can get to get into tech and go from there. And you ended up enjoying it. So what was the in terms of the company, what were you selling?
The first one, we were selling software testing. So testing to see if there were bugs, if the UX is good, if the payments go through. So making sure the apps would work exactly as they should. This was kind of an extension of the internal quality assurance team. Um, so yeah, so that was the product. And I remember, obviously my German now is fluent, but still not my native language. And I remember, to prepare myself to the role, I got already the job. I would start in a month, and I was like, okay, I don't understand anything about tech by then, right? Maybe I should prepare myself to, in order to, do a better job when I start, and to be a bit more prepared. So I asked them, like, what can I read or watch before, to make sure that I don't start from 00000. And they recommended me this book that's technical, very technical software testing in German. And I read the book until the end before starting, but I was like, I'm not sure if I'll be able to to do this, but I'll see and I'll manage. It's not the first or the second or the third time that I put myself in a difficult situation, so this is just another one. And then it comes back to what I mentioned at the beginning. I've done 100% sales commission job. This cannot be worse. This cannot be more stressful, right? So I'll manage. That's why a lot of times in my life, when I find myself in challenging situations, I always go back to, come on, you've done 100% commission job, like, this will be fine. So yeah, and again, it was fine.
Yeah, I was gonna. There's that saying, isn't it? Like, do something hard early in the day, or do something hard as soon as you wake up. And it's the same sort of thing. You did something very, very hard early on in your career, and you can reference that as a point of, well, I've done hard, so this will be easier. It's exactly the same thing. You go for a 5 kilometer run at -4 at 5 a.m. You've started your day with something hard. The rest of the day is
Yeah,
pretty chill.
exactly.
It's nice and warm. It's nice and comfortable. You don't have to run 5K. Everything seems easier. So that's yeah. It speaks to that getting comfortable with doing something hard and then referencing that.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so in terms of that BD role, then, so how long were you in that BD role?
um I would say almost 2 years, or 2 years. But again, in that time period, I started as business development, then I went to the senior role, going enterprise, and then I was team lead. So again, I was in the company for, I would say, around 2 years. But within these 2 years, I've done several things, all in the sales side. But I was, yeah, progressing in the role.
So you managed to go from BD to a more enterprise role, and then to a
Team
team
lead.
lead. Did you say?
So
So
I
yeah.
was still prospecting, but I was already doing some team lead tasks.
So did that within 2 years. So it sounds like it went well in terms of like sales. I'm assuming hitting targets
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah. I never missed target.
so okay. So it was your first foray into tech and into a sales role of this type. So in 2 years, you had two-ish promotions, very successful, had a good amount of success. So in terms of what you learned, like obviously you learned, you read the German book about tech, so you know you learn
Not sure how much that helped me, but
yeah, confused you more than anything. Yeah, so you learned a lot about the world of tech, and I guess how to sell in tech. But describe the 2 years in terms of what you came away from that role with that you didn't have before you went into it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, first, a huge understanding of technology as a whole and all of the bits and bytes of tech and SaaS and the different roles, as to, like, how things work. Um, but also, like, I I kind of used my weakness in my favor, in the sense that, yes, I started off like, I don't understand anything what's going on here. Um, and the company at the time, thank God, they sending SDRs to conferences. And I was in the first, like, when I was chatting to people here and there, I was on it. I was like, so how does it work, and how is like that, and why is that important? And sometimes I may look like a fool, but I was like, I need to learn as fast as I can. And also I realized that, especially when I start to understand a bit better, like, why our product is good and what's the value and etc. And I already could start a conversation in a conference. When they start to get technical, I said, that's a great question. Let me connect with my colleague because I don't have the answer for you. And that's basically my job. My job was to book meetings anyway. So I found that not knowing sometimes was actually good for that role specifically, and I was able to book meetings also because of that, while learning on the side and trying to understand and iterate and on the go as well. And every week, every conference would get a bit better and a bit better, a bit better. And so that was the one of the things that really helped me actually be successful. um, I'm very thankful that I didn't start this role during COVID with no conferences. I think the conferences and being able to speak to the people face to face then helped me then crafting better emails and have a better understanding of what good prospecting looks like. And and then I also noticed a lot of, because I've done operations before and I was leading teams before. I've trained people before, and I've noticed that a lot of companies, they don't onboard and train people properly. Unfortunately, it's a reality. So I was trying to do an introspection of, like, okay, if someone starts, what are the things that I wish someone have taught me or told me from the beginning? What could have, like, accelerated my knowledge that I had to find out here and there? What, maybe if someone would have taught me properly in the first weeks, I didn't need, I don't know, 3 or 4 months to get the same amount of information. So in that regard, that's when I was team lead. I was building, onboarding from scratch, training people from scratch. And that's what got me the team lead role as well. So my previous experience, but also me coming from a completely ignorant phase to knowing and understanding, okay, what are the things that people really need to know, and would have liked to know at the time. And that really, really, really helped me. So I kind of turned my weaknesses, I kind of worked around them, and I made them work for me at the time. Yeah.
So, like we said, so two-ish promotions in 2 years, going very, very well in a team lead sort of position. So, why did you leave if things were going so well?
Well, first, at the time it was already COVID. So I have to say that me and my team, we were working insanely during COVID, because the targets were increased. We had no conferences, so we had more obstacles, less resources, and so we were working a lot, a lot, a lot. So I was kind of burned out by the end of it. I was like, I'm so, so, so tired. This was one of the reasons why I was like, I cannot do this anymore. I need a new product, a new challenge, because I'm completely burned out from this. But as well, there was then the position to apply from team lead to manager, and I didn't get it. And I was like, okay, if I cannot grow in my career ladder anymore, it's time to go. I'm burned out, so I'm not enjoying this anymore, and I didn't get what I think at the time was deserved, and I still think I should have gotten the position. So I like, it's time to go, and I left. So that's the reasons why.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, in its simplest form, if you're not or at the base level, if you're not enjoying the role you're in, that's probably the clearest sign of
Yeah,
it's not the right role. Layer on top of that, if you're not being challenged and you're not learning, then you're not growing, so you're stagnating in your career. Combine those two, and then I guess the icing on top, or the cherry on top, was that you didn't get the role that you felt you deserved. So, 2-ish years in a role, it's a good stint. It's more than a year. It's anything
exactly.
in the realms, I would say, of like 2 to 3 years is a good stint.
Yeah,
It
absolutely.
shows that you've been
Yeah.
through the cycle of a role a couple of times. So what was the next step? What did you want from the next role? How did you come across it?
Yeah. So I was looking for, yeah, the next role, which I would like to be again team lead business development, manager business development, something along the sales enablement. Because at the time I trained my sales myself. I did John Barrow's courses. I was already training and onboarding my team. So I was like something in those lines. But also I wanted to make a bigger impact, because I felt as well that I've I've done a good job at the time. I've helped a lot of my colleagues, and that didn't turn out. It didn't count for me to get promoted. And I was like, okay, being and we will talk about it later, but like just being great at your job, it doesn't equal a promotion. So at all. So that was also a tough learning, but an important one, because once you realize that, then you can start going up and up, because you take control of your career. So I've learned that, and I was like, okay, let me then apply to things I really want. I have the experience, I have the knowledge, I have the CV, and I want to make a proper impact. And I thought, in a smaller company, they need you more than in a bigger company. They need your expertise more than in bigger companies, and probably you're gonna be way more. It's gonna be more rewarding. So I joined at the time a pre-seed startup that was also they also had a product that I really believed in, because it talked to my pain, which was they trying to improve the onboarding and the sales training to companies. And I didn't have proper onboarding, proper training. I was trying to do that as a team lead. And I was like, okay, this startup has the mission, I believe. I know exactly the pain. It's going to be super easy for me to talk to customers and prospects, because I feel them. I can help them, because I've done myself training and onboarding. And I really liked the CEO, the founder, which is important in such a small environment. And I was like, this sounds perfect to me.
And was this still in Berlin?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
still live in Berlin even nowadays.
Ah, nice. And what was the title of the job that you moved to?
So again, I started as sales enablement consultant because they hired me to consult on their clients on training and onboardings because we were offering the platform, the SaaS, it was a SaaS platform, but also they want to have a consultant to help them onboard and train and I was hired for that. So I really enjoyed the job. But then as the startup got funded, we got the seed round funding, we start hiring. And again, I had previously the experience of managing teams in tourism and also in my previous role one thing leads to the other and I end up leading three departments: the customer success, marketing and business development, and doing the whole hiring and training and managing. And so I started sales enablement consultant, I went to customer success and business development, and then once I added marketing on top of it, I went to director of growth because I was taking basically the whole revenue department underneath me. And this was a time span of 3.5 years from the beginning until the end.
No, you touched on a couple of well-known stories of the startup world in terms of having to wear multiple different hats. So, those listening who have worked in a startup will appreciate this. Those who haven't worked in a startup, essentially, you will do the job. You'll do your job title, but you'll also do like one, two, three, four, five other jobs as well, because there just simply isn't enough people. There aren't enough people to do all of the jobs, so someone has to pick it up.
Yep. Yep.
It's good and bad for the same reason. It's great because you get loads of experience, you're always busy, and you
Never
become a
boring.
more you become a more rounded professional. It's bad because you're too busy, you're doing
You
jobs
never
that
do
you're not
anything right or the
necessarily
way you want.
you're not necessarily qualified for the job, and because you're doing five different jobs, the old spread too thinly
Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
effect comes into it. So
Yeah.
okay, then, so you went in as a sales enablement consultant. You moved over to head up business development and customer success. You did that for a couple of years, and then you moved into director of growth, looking after basically marketing and sales.
Exactly. So I added marketing to the equation, which makes me growth. Like that's the word that summarizes like everything. So yep. Um, and is exactly as you mentioned. I have done everything plus other stuff that's not interesting, or it's not part of my role. Like I organized offsites, for example, because we didn't have HR, right? So someone has to organize the offsites. It was me because I've done, again, remember when I told
Yeah.
you before, I've done corporate management events, so I know how to organize. I know how to organize offsites. So all of the skills I gathered throughout my career, they always come in handy all the time. The moments you expect the least, they suddenly it's like, oh, I've done that before. So yes, that's the beauty of working on a startup. You learn a lot, you do a lot. And if you don't do it, no one else will do it for you because there is no one else. We are spread too thin, and I think it's a fantastic experience to have. But again, and going back once again to hospitality, I was okay with that. I was solving 10,000 issues at the same time with people screaming at me, with snow, with everything. So it's okay. I've been in a more stressful job in hospitality. So I can do 10 roles at a time in a startup. I'm fine with
Yeah,
that.
this might be a difficult question to answer because of how many different things you were doing and what you were responsible for. But in terms of that, there is a phrase that I'm looking for in terms of the environment you were in being amazing for development and learning. There is a phrase for it, but it isn't coming to mind. But in that environment, what were the highlights in terms of what you learned then in that 3.5 year period that you took forward? What are those like key learnings from doing all of those different things?
Yeah. So I would say that because I was doing three different departments mainly, I really understand how each one works, and I understand the pains and the priorities of each department. So, and we were gonna go back to this later, but now at UpCloud, I'm just head of business development, so I only have business development. But because I've done marketing before, I collaborate very well with marketing. You know, they are speaking to a head of business development who knows marketing, which makes the conversations much more efficient. So I think that it's easier for me to not work in silos, because when I work and I will speak to other departments, I understand their priorities, I understand their pains, and I understand that my priority might not be theirs, and I understand how to work around that. And I would say that, I mean, I have a lot of learnings from doing so many things, but I would say that this is the biggest one I take, because I've done so many different departments. I know what's like to be in their shoes, so it
Yeah,
makes conversations easier.
it's again, like it's far easier in a startup to have the I guess the option, the capabilities, the environment to be
Yeah,
able to step into different roles. Well, I think I'm fortunate enough to have worked in a startup. You're looking at around 35 heads, scaled up to around 70 heads in the time that I was there before I left. So I came in as demand gen manager. Within 3 months, I was head of marketing,
yeah,
and then I ended up sitting next to head of sales and head of CS, which meant that the three of us were literally sat next to each other, and that was um, one of incubators, the phrase I was looking for, the word. So it was the perfect incubator
that's a good word.
to, yeah, that's the phrase I was looking for, where I knew it would come to me. But it was the perfect incubator for understanding their role and how marketing played into sales and how marketing played into CS. So it was like, right, I would love success stories to use in ads. Okay, I got CS sitting next to me. CS can only give me success stories if their sales are pitching and selling to the right customers who will get value from the tool. So it's this nice like cycle of marketing, try and bring in the right leads. Sales only sell to the right people that will get value.
Yeah,
CS get given a good customer and a good account that we can actually help. And like, oh, it comes back to marketing because I can then use it as a success story in ads. I can reference the testimonials and things like that. So it's the perfect incubator. And would you suggest, if people can, to try and work in a startup at some point
yeah,
in their career?
yeah, yeah. I can only recommend. It's also a lesson of humbleness, because startups are really rough, because you can die anytime, right? So you're always in the verge of, like, we have runway for the next X month.
Yeah, just to clarify, not the professional might die. The company
Yeah,
might
yeah,
die.
not the professional.
I was like, we have worked in very different startups. I didn't fear for my life at any point.
I did, but in hospitality, not in the startup. But yeah, in a startup, like, the company can just get bankrupt very quickly.
Mm.
And
The dreaded word runway. Yeah,
runway is
yeah,
the
yeah.
dreaded word. Yes. Also, you don't have the luxury of, oh, I have money for this tool and I can hire these. No, no, no. You have to work. You have to make it happen with what you have. No budget for fancy tools or to hire an assistant. um a lot of things, if we all depending on each other. And but in a bigger company, I need to wait for marketing, customer success, whatever. Like, there is, like, if want this to happen, you need to do it yourself, because no one will. There is no one there to do it, right? So if I want to, for example, in my startup, when I was hiring for customer success managers or for business development people, I was the one screening the 700 CVs a day, because there is no HR. And if I don't do it, there is I don't get candidates, because no one will do that for me. So I have to do it. You learn a lot and you appreciate things more, because when you go to a company with a bit more resources, you complain less as well. It's like, oh my god, I can't believe these. That is like, it's like, oh my god, now I have someone screening the CVs for me. I just need to do the second and third interview. That's amazing. You are appreciative as well. Oh my god, now I have this tool that automates that I had to do with pen and paper. That's amazing. Well, people are like, ah, this is horrible. Like, dude, I've seen worse. You know.
Yeah, I would. I would, yeah, I 100% agree with you. Look, you will probably be very, very stressed. You will probably have worse sleep. You'll have much worse bags under your eyes. You will work longer hours. But for that year, 2 years, 3 years, however long you decide to stay, oh my word, do you like in that 2 years, 2.5 years of my career that I was at that startup, I learned more than in the previous 10 years that came before that. And now I've moved to a scale up. I'm learning a whole different
Yeah.
vibe in that it's like a startup, but you've got a bit more process, a few more people,
Yeah. Same with
and
Upcloud now.
yeah,
Yeah.
I love like now I've done the startup, a scale up. I'm like, right, this is the nice little area to be. But yeah, you've got to again. It links back to that. Do something hard. Startup life is hard. Like it's risky, it's volatile, but the good moments far outweigh the bad.
Yeah,
So
I
definitely,
regret nothing. I had such
yeah,
a
yeah,
good time.
100%.
Yeah,
Go
yeah.
and spend 2 years. Like do 2 years. One's not enough for any
No, no,
job.
no, no.
If you
You
can avoid
really
doing a
need to
year,
feel it.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You've
Absolutely.
got to live it. Yeah, you got to live
Yeah,
it for a couple of years if you can. Go and
yeah.
do a startup because you will, any other job that you join after that startup, you will literally walk in and be like, why do I know so much more than the people around me? Or like, why can I do that and they can't even do that? And that's their job. Like you will have these skills and the aptitude and these traits where you're like, wow, okay, the bar's
But then
pretty
you need to be
low.
patient, because it's like, give me that. I can do that in 2 seconds. Why are
Mm.
you taking it so long? Ah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that is one thing actually. The pace of a startup is unrivaled, as in you have to change, adapt, release, develop
All in the
so
same hour.
quickly. Yeah, which is so it's amazing because of how quick you can do things and learn. Bad because there's obviously a lot of mistakes that happen, but you'll
Yeah,
have to get
yeah.
used to returning to some semblance of normality with where things are a little bit slower. But yeah, 100% in a nutshell, go and try and work at a
Yes.
startup for a couple of years.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So you ended up as like director of growth, looking sales, marketing. That was how 3.5 years.
Yeah.
There seems to be a nice like pattern in terms of how long you look to spend at a
Yeah,
company.
I
Roughly
always
that.
try to and again, this is maybe a good tip for someone listening to a podcast. Like, when I look for a job, I want to stay long term for many reasons, because it looks better in your CV. If you jump a lot, it's not good, doesn't look good on you. But also, you need a certain amount of time to be good at your job, the ramp time, right? So if you change a lot, you're not going to be, you won't excel, you don't have time. And also, it's, I mean, finding jobs, interviewing, it's stressful, right? So you need some stability as well. So when I interview, I'm also assessing the company, right? And if I see red flags, even if the salary is great, I don't take the offer. If I think I cannot work with this manager, having a manager with whom you can work with is super important. I don't take the job. So I always take jobs where I think I can be at least 1 year minimum, and I've been always more than that. So that's something that people should evaluate in the interview: is, can I do I see anything that that's a red flag for
Yeah,
me?
it works both ways. Like
It goes both ways.
I've
Do I want to
been.
work with me? Do I work to what to work
Yeah, yeah,
with
yeah.
them?
Look, as an employee in terms of that application process, look, yes, you're looking for a new job, but you do have a degree of power nowadays because it's very, very challenging to find good people.
Yes,
So when you come across a good candidate, at the end of the day, like as a company, you want to put your
yes,
best foot forward as a company,
yes.
and the only reason I sort of put it like that, we've just offered obviously we're recording this in January. We've just offered a role to a website manager, and I think let's hope it all goes all well before this episode goes live, and we do actually get it through and everything. But we the candidate asked a good number of questions at the end. We were like, right, tables have turned. I said, you asked me some questions, and it was basically like, oh, what's your opinion on this? How do you approach this? Like, what's the relationship between you and the CEO like? What's the relationship between you and your manager like? What's the culture like? And I really enjoyed the fact that they were quizzing me, and I was like, oh my god, I should have worn a shirt and a tie to an interview where I'm the interviewer. But that's good. Like,
It's
have the
great.
confidence to challenge the potential employer that you're connecting with.
Yep. Yeah, and you have to. Otherwise, you might, you know, you might end up in a situation that you've done all the paperwork, and then you are in the first week, and I was like, oh, the first week is already not great.
Yeah, no,
Imagine
you got to be spending 40 to 50 hours a week
in
sitting
a
behind a
place
desk
where you
before.
feel miserable, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, for the sake of your own sanity and for the sake of potentially thousands of hours of your
Do your
life,
homework. Do your
do your
homework.
homework. In the same way, when you're buying a car and it's used, you do your due diligence. You'll put it through a car checker, car reg checker, to make sure it's got no
Exactly.
outstanding finance and it's not being crashed.
Yeah.
Like, that's a very, very good piece of advice. Okay, so 3.5 years. Why? Again, it sounds like things were going well. It was the right company. You were learning tons. Why did you decide to leave, or what was? How come you made a move?
It's an easy, a very straightforward answer. The company got acquired.
Okay.
And I mentioned to my CEO at the time, the day it gets acquired, I'm leaving. So he knew that. He still tried
And
to
what
make
was
me
the reason?
stay, but
As in, why did you want? Why did you pretty openly say I'm leaving once it gets acquired?
because I've done my mission. I've learned. I was happy. You should leave when things are good, when not when things are bad. and and I felt that I've accomplished my mission. Time for a new one. 3 years. I've done, from pre-seed to seed to hiring to tech recession to laying off to getting acquired. I'm good. Like I'm good. I'm ready for the next challenge, and I live with a smile in my face.
So was it a good acquisition in the sense of
Yeah.
you could have stayed on and there would have been
Yeah,
a
yeah,
role
yeah,
for
yeah.
you?
They
Yeah,
offered
yeah.
me, and they tried
Mm.
to make me stay, and they raised the offer for my salary. So yeah, yeah, yeah. Like I had my place was absolutely um, safe and guaranteed. But I said no, because again, I knew I if I would have accepted, I would stay on for 2-3 months while looking for a new job. And as I mentioned, I don't like to start something that will end in a month or two. When I accept an offer is for a longer, or I want it to be for a longer period of time if everything goes well, or at least okay. So I knew that I was not very excited to continue working there. So I just, let's make it easier for everyone. I'm not going to stay 2 months in the new company because it got acquired, meaning I have to learn new colleagues, new culture, new processes. For what? To leave in 3 months? Nah, I'm good.
Okay, yeah, that's sensible. I can respect that decision. So, talk to me about the journey from that role to the role you're in today,
Yeah,
because it,
yeah,
it wasn't necessarily going from that role to this role today, was it? That you did other things in between, or are still doing, right?
yeah. So it this was May this last year's 2024. Then when the company got acquired, and by then I was working already for 12 years with no break at all, like 2 weeks in a row for holiday max, most of the time 10 days. So I was like, I'm tired. So I left without having anything, in line. I didn't have an offer, or I didn't look for a job. I was like, I'm gonna enjoy summer while finishing my book. So I just 2 days ago, I I sent the final version to the publisher. So I was like, I have to finish my book. I would like to do some consulting on the side on the meantime, because again, I want to learn faster and more about different industries and prospecting in different industries. And while look for a new role, and now that I've done mostly all of the revenue roles, account executive, business development, enablement, customer success, marketing. Now I know it. For the first time in my life, I know exactly what I like and what I don't like. And I knew I wanted to do either growth, content marketing, or business development. Like, so I only applied for heads of these, and a bit of enablement as well. I also like enablement. So I knew I didn't want to do customer success. I knew I didn't want to do more on the closing side, account management, these kind of things. And yeah, so I was enjoying summer while applying, and the role at UpCloud was perfect because was exactly what I wanted. The role description, exactly what I wanted. Great company culture. I liked my boss and the team who interviewed me. Again, I was like, can I work with these people? Yes, I can. Fully remote, which is a must for me because I dislike going to offices. I work very well at home. It ticked all the boxes, you know. So I had other offers, but this one ticked all the boxes. So let's go.
No, yeah, I've not taken a career break, but it's definitely something
You
that,
should.
yeah, no, it's something that I think I would like to do at some point. I don't know when it will be. Maybe,
To be honest, I
um,
only took 3 months and I was working these 3 months. So I cannot really call it a career break.
well, an unstructured,
But you know,
yeah, yeah,
I wish
um,
I didn't do the 3 months backpacking in Asia, you know? Like I was like
yeah, yeah. You
doing
didn't go,
meetings consulting.
you didn't go and find yourself in the
No,
forest.
I
Yeah,
found
yeah.
myself a long time ago. I'm good. So yes, so I was extremely busy, and my mother and my friends, they were so confused. Like, aren't you unemployed? And I'm like, yes, but
Just the nature of my personality is I love being busy,
me
and I
too.
hate, I can't do more than a few hours of nothing. Like, even on the day where I'm like, right, I'm going to have a slob day. I'm going to do nothing, which is good for stress and it's good for whatever. I sit there and I'm like, oh, I need to go for a walk. So I don't know, I'll walk to the shop and get something that I didn't need. Or I'll be like, right, I'm going to the gym. I'm like, I know it was a rest day, but I'm going to go to the gym.
No, no, no. That's yeah,
So
yeah. I
it makes me
understand.
think, like, what if, 30 years down the line, 25 years, whenever it is that I get to retire, I'm going to need something to keep me busy when I'm in retirement, because I will be so bored. And I don't mean like kids or a dog. I mean, like, I need some sort of hobby, like
Yeah, yeah. Hobby
restoring
project.
cars or
Yeah,
so.
yeah, yeah.
Like, yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. No, me too. I mean, the sofa. My brain is already thinking. You know, like yeah, absolutely. So yeah, no, I can recommend the career break even if it's a productive one like the one I had. Yeah.
Okay, right. Korea a whistle stop tour of the 10 to 12 years. Now let's do the quick fire roundup then. So in terms of your top three tips for moving up the ladder, or just the top three tips for like career development, what would those be?
So I would say like if you know what your next step should look like. So you know, imagine I'm a BDR, I want to be an account executive, or I'm a BDR and I want to be a team lead. You need to think which skills you don't have yet that's needed for that job, right? Because I've seen a lot, for example, people say, hey, I'm the best performer, I should be the manager. Fair. I'm not saying this is not logical, it is, but many times the top performers are not the best managers, right? And so before thinking, okay, which skills do I need to get that role, and can I already learn some of them already? Can I let my manager know that that's what I want to be, and I can already learn, take courses, whatever it's needed to get the skills for when the opportunity arises. It doesn't happen. We really like you. You were a fantastic BDR, but we need someone with this knowledge or experience. And then suddenly you didn't climb up the career ladder. So I really recommend taking extra projects, or learn something for the role that you think you want to do. So if you want to be an account executive, maybe start doing some discovery on your own, taking some discovery courses, so already, don't expect to get promoted just like that. It doesn't
Yeah,
work.
it's interesting. I would say on the whole, especially in sales, the top performers almost never make good managers.
Yeah,
I don't know why it is. Maybe it's because
it's a
in order
different
to
skill set.
be, yeah, in order to be a true top performer in sales, you do like that's, but you do need to be a little bit selfish. You do need to have a certain um not lack of empathy, but an awareness that you can't have too much empathy in sales because it's just a deal, right? And that's not on the whole, but I would say yeah, largely like the top 1% of billers don't make good
And I
leaders.
think that's a great bridge to the next thing I would say, which is if you want to climb up, right? So let's say team lead, manager, director, you need obviously to do a good job, right? You need to also deserve to get promoted. Like if you don't hit target, suddenly you're manager, that also doesn't make sense, right? So you need to do a great job, but not at all costs, which is exactly what you're saying. You need to learn to compromise and to communicate with other departments, because that's the biggest chunk of being a manager or a director. And if you're not good at it and you want to climb the career ladder, you should start learning that skill. The empathy that you mentioned, the give and take, the understanding the challenges that the other department has, the priorities that they're not the same as yours, trying to find a compromise within departments.
Yeah, it's any healthy relationship, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
your wife, your husband, your
is
boyfriend, your
yeah,
girlfriends. Yeah.
exactly. But being good at your job and not at any cost, extremely
Mm.
important to climb up the career ladder, in my opinion. Obviously,
Yeah, and
you
on
have
the
people
whole,
who are
that's
horrible
something.
people and they are in the sea level, but I also want that to stop.
Yeah, I think that tends to be in more traditional industries, and
Yes.
again, it tends to be a generational thing. I think it's getting because I remember back in my first job out of university, there were some absolute horrendous people in
Yeah,
senior leadership
yeah,
positions,
and we need to fix
vile,
that.
vile. I don't even mind. I'm not going to say any names, but like there were vile people,
Yeah,
like. They should not have been allowed to work with anyone else.
yeah,
They were
yeah,
terrible managers,
yeah.
terrible people, bipolar tendencies that were just
Narcissistic traits.
yeah, manipulative, but it seems to be getting less and less common, which is nice. And I think on the whole, senior leaders seem to have a much
Yeah.
better understanding of yeah, it is a human you're managing, and they have stress and they have anxiety, and you need to create a healthy working environment, which is great. Okay, third tip. What's the third tip?
So this is something that I didn't do consciously, but that was something that my boss from my previous company, so the CEO of the startup where I was director of growth, he mentioned from very early on when I was still the sales and development consultant, that was something that for him was extremely important. And I think if you want to climb the career ladder, you need to. I did it unconsciously, but for me, it's a really good tip, which is don't raise problems if you don't have solutions with you. And if you can solve them yourself, even better. So one thing is raising a problem, the other thing is complaining. So always try to go to your colleagues and to leadership saying, we have a bottleneck here, we have an issue, we have a problem. I think this is because of this and that. I think if you do this and that, this might get better. This is a way more constructive way to go about things. And if you want to climb, that's what they're expecting from you as well as a director. I cannot go to the CCO. I report to the chief commercial officer, and as a director of business development, I cannot go to him and say, ah, you know um our tools, our tech stack is not good. No, like, I have to go to him and say, hey, I don't think we have the right tech stack because this, and that. I think we should do this, and that. Let me do a free trial. Let me compare results. I will take care of it. I think by the end of blah, 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 we have this sorted. He doesn't care. Like, it's my problem. I need to solve it. That's why I was hired for. So if you already start having this attitude, right? So if you go, for example, you are a BD, and I always did that unconsciously. So when I was a BDR, and again, to when I went to from BDR to senior BDR to team lead, the when I would say the main reason was, hey, our onboarding is not the greatest, but I've built these, and these presentations. I'm happy to onboard the next BDRs. And that's a much different conversation. And if the team lead is like, do cool, I don't really enjoy doing that. If you can do that, and and people feel more comfortable in their roles and they're happier, like, go for it. So definitely don't raise problems without at least mentioning some sort of solution.
Yeah, like you said, as you move further up the ladder, ultimately businesses want problem solvers. You're being brought in to either solve a problem
Or
or
mitigate.
yeah, or to improve something or to scale something, and
Yeah.
they don't want to have to do that. Help you do that. You're being brought in to do it, right? So,
Yeah.
um, okay. Any career regrets today?
um I have to say, in general, in life, I don't have regrets, because when things don't go well, if I had fun or if I learned something, I'm okay with that. I think it's only a regret if I didn't learn, I didn't have fun, I didn't, that's a waste of time. So I think, in general, I don't have biggest regrets. However, that being said, I think I should have left the tourism industry 1 year earlier than what I did. And the reason is, I was already ready to move. I already wanted to go into tech, but I was promised by leadership a raise and a different title and different challenges with no timeline. You will have it. You will have it next month. You will have it. It's been a year. So I stayed because I believed in these promises, which is something, that you learn in your career. That's a rookie mistake. And I that was the wrong reason for staying. If you say, I'm not learning but I'm having fun, that's okay. It's fine. I'm not learning but I have a great salary, or I don't have a great salary but I really enjoy doing, that's also fine. But I stayed even though I was not happy with my salary anymore and I was not learning anymore. I wanted to learn from that industry, but they made me empty promises, and I stayed because of that. So I think it was a wrong reason to stay. But again, do I regret? I've learned my lesson. I
Yeah,
never make that mistake again.
you learn more from the things that don't go your way.
Yeah,
Whether that's a failure, whether that's
yeah,
something that wasn't as optimal as it could have been.
exactly.
We've just launched the streaming platform that this episode will go out on, and oof, we learned a lot in the last month. Let's put it that way.
Yep,
On the outside, people are like, "Oh, what a lovely streaming platform they've just launched." On the inside, it was tough. But we now, when we do a new season or a new series, it's a lot easier than it was the
yep,
first time around.
yep.
So don't be afraid to fail.
No, no, no. That's why I
I
don't like
think,
to call it regrets.
yeah. I think Stephen Bartlett in his book, The 33 Laws of Business and Life, I think he said, fail hard and fail often, or something like that. Like look for failure,
Yeah,
because if you look for failure and you fail, you at least you tried something, and
yeah,
you're going to learn from it. The only piece of advice caveat to that is don't keep failing and not learning, because
yeah, 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 yeah.
that's the definition of madness,
And
doing the same thing over and over again.
and if you can avoid failures because of better planning and because you've done enough research, then you should, right? So I think there's a balance. Let's not glamorize failure, but let's not be afraid of it either. So try
Mm.
to find a balance, between both.
Yeah, do you? Yeah, okay. Do you don't go into something with the expectation of, no, I want to fail 17 times before I get it right. Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. Okay, so you've been enrolled for 5 months. So this is a potentially a premature question, but what's next?
Yeah.
What do you see being the next step, whether that be developing your current role or something in 5 years? What do you
Yeah.
think is the next step?
So yes, I definitely for now I want to stay where I am because, as you know, by my track record, I stay usually long in companies, and I have a lot of. I love my team. My team is absolutely fantastic, and I want to make sure that we keep developing further. And when I feel that I've done everything I could, and it's they developed, and when I feel I've accomplished my mission, I will leave. That's usually how it works for me. So after I accomplished my mission at UpCloud, I for now I think I want to go back to freelancing. So I did that 3 months test. It went really well, and I think I would like to go back to a longer period of time doing consulting for business development. I wrote a book about that, the one that I mentioned before that I just submitted to the publisher 2 days ago. So it's about prospecting, LinkedIn cold calling, email, how to build a business development department from scratch, how to do a good onboarding, all of the things we were talking in this episode in Portuguese, in my native language. So it's only available in Portuguese, and with that, I want to help small businesses, medium, small solopreneurs, and I want to do some consulting on that side as well. So um, yeah.
Are you allowed to tell me what the book's called in English? Obviously, because I won't
Yes,
understand
I
it in
mean it's
Portuguese.
still so I am, even though I'm not sure if this still will. This is the title I suggested,
The working title, yeah.
the working title. So I suggested this title. I'm not sure if it's going to be the final one, but yeah, I can share. So the main title is "Sales to Those Who Think Cannot Sell," or no, who think they don't have any talent to sell.
Mm.
And then the subtitle is like "Prospecting with the Help of AI," because I also give some AI tips how to make your
Oh,
work.
I like the title. Yeah, I like the title.
Because I want
Um,
people who are not in sales to relate themselves. So this is not a book just for people
mm.
working already in business development. This is for anyone who would like to sell something, whether it's their
And
specific project or.
what's the rough published date that you're working
April,
towards?
May.
Okay, so this episode will go out at some point in February or March, so
There
not
you go.
long now until you can get the book. What's the end goal? Like, where do you see the end of your career being, or where do you want to reach before the end of your career?
I want to have more time for my hobbies. So the end of my career would be make the same amount of money with less time spent on working. But I would like to do some, yeah, spending my days doing some consulting, because I really enjoy business development and consulting and helping smaller businesses. I really really enjoy that. But I also would like to spend more time in my artistic projects. I want to uh, to write other books that are not technical books. I want to write fiction. I want to learn how to draw. I want to go more. I want to have more time to do these things, which so far, which is normal, and I think it's healthy that in the beginning of your career you don't have time for any of those. I think that's really important. So
Yeah, no, and we touched on retirement. Hopefully, it's before retirement that you get to
yeah,
enjoy,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
more time for those things
I
like that.
want to enjoy that while I'm still youngish.
Yeah, whilst you've got the health and the
Exactly,
well-being and
exactly.
the energy
Yeah,
to
yeah,
to enjoy those things.
yeah.
Right. Well, that brings us to the end. We've got a few minutes in our allotted time left, which is perfect timing. So thank you very much for joining me for
No,
an
thank you for
episode.
having me.
And for those listening, we hope you tune back in. If you aren't already subscribed to Stream, please subscribe. If you're listening on podcast platforms, please follow. And we will catch you in the next episode.